Welcome to Impact Funding Summit Online 2020. It's great to have everybody here as part of the Impact Funding Summit. We are extremely excited about this event as Meraklis. I'm Vishal Naik, co-founder of Meraklis, who's the organizer for this event. My team is also with us. It is Durga Das, who is the co-founder, and Iftikhar Pathan. So we have been working on this for last 1.5 years for Meraklis, building the platform. When COVID came in, we thought, how do we create an event which can actually help all the social entrepreneurs, NGOs out there? Because when we started building this event, it was all about business startups, this thing, there was webinars going on, everything, but that's when we thought we should come up with this thing, get the best minds in India and abroad, and look at how do we have a fantastic value delivered to the audience, which will be really helpful in giving a direction to all of us in this COVID times. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining in, and let me thank our sponsors, Tirtha and Aeronero, Durga Das, who has been very kind to support this event, Clean Network, which is Advait Joshi, who has been very supportive and has been helping us throughout the organization of this event, and Hope for Children Foundation with Carolyn. I think she has been very distinct. She came in and helped us with building the agenda and everything together. So thank you. And I think when we started this event, one of the first partners that we went to look was IIT Kanpur. They really liked the concept, and thank you, Dr. Nikhil, for coming in and looking at this and helping us build this event together. And I'll also like to thank all our other partners who have come on board, Satyarthi Foundation, Your Story, Asia NGO, Assist, Social Story, JESIA, MIT University, Startup to Stand Out, Creative Bharat, Entrepreneur Cafe, IBS, Evolving X, and Impact thing. So there have been fantastic support from everyone. So let me first welcome Dr. Nikhil Agarwal. He's an alumnus of Edinburgh University as well as Cambridge. He's worked across the globe in various roles. He's worked with FICCI and in a lot of work in the social development sector. And he's currently the CEO of IIT Kanpur, a startup and incubation center. And he's leading this there in terms of doing fantastic innovation. You must have seen that with the tweet that Modi put out. So welcome, Nikhilji.
Thanks a lot, Vishal. It's an exciting day. I think this is the first time as you have said, that we have all attended hundreds of webinars or put in thousands of hours in the last 3 months in doing the webinars. But it's the first time we are attending a proper conference. All of us has been quite habitual of sitting in the panel in a nice 5-star location, but we never thought that we will sit in our study room doing a conference when thousands of people across the world will be participating and attending this conference. I'm so thankful for Meraklis and Impact Funding team to bring this online. The topic itself is very interesting, and before I do, I would like to introduce you to our keynote speaker today. It will help you in understanding then why Mr. Chowdhry is there to start the conference. There is nobody better than him to start the conference. Mr. Ajai Chowdhry is the founder of HCL. He has worked with HCL for almost 40 years. In 2012, he decided to, after working 40 years, decided to move from HCL, and now he is doing many interesting things. Government of India has conferred him in 2011 as a Padma Bhushan, which is the third highest civilian awards in the country. Mr. Chowdhry started in 1972, and I am sure many of our young participants who are attending today may not be born that by then. I was not born, I can say very confidently. He started with DCM data, and 1975, he was one of the first IT entrepreneurs that India had. In 1975, you can imagine that nobody has heard about IT and computer science. At that time, Mr. Chowdhry started Microcom. He has to wind off during that time. I'm sure he will tell a story why that company was winded off. But eventually, he joined Mr. Shiv Nadar and started HCL. He built up the Singapore office and go on to become the HCL, the most important brand in this part of the world as we see today. Mr. Chaudhary, since 2012, has been involved in a number of philanthropic activities, in institutional building activities. He has been the board member of several IITs, including IIT Padma. And more importantly, in the current situation, I have seen his commitment. I have been working with him for the last 3-4 months. He is giving personal 3-4 hours a day on a per day basis to building the COVID solution. He has not only like giving a time, he is involved with two important foundations. One is called Save Lives Foundation, and another is Population Foundation. He has donated his personal money, more than 1 crore, to these foundations so that they can contribute doing the COVID related activities in Delhi and around Delhi. Mr. Chaudhary is a great philanthropist, great industrialist, and the great supporter of what we call it, the COVID task force. He is the core member of our COVID task force, and we work very closely at IIT Kanpur with him. Now, coming to IIT Kanpur Incubation Center, as Vishal has said, in the last 3 months, in fact, I can tell you the dates. Today is 18th of June. On 12th and 13th of June, and I was in Hyderabad that time, I was supposed to be going to Kanpur on 16th of March. Today is exactly 3 months, 2 days. My tickets are still cancelled. I am not able to go for last 3 months. The reason is we all know better than anybody else. But in the last 3 months, I can say I have been working more harder than what I was working in office. And one of the core reasons is that we believe that we can do something different. We believe that we may be sitting in a different place. We may be sitting at home, but there is a solution, there is a technology, there is ideas that can be cultivated, that can be built, that can be created from anywhere. And that demonstration, I would be saying that thanks to IIT companies, some of that demonstration we have seen in the leadership of people like Mr. Chaudhary. We have built up a world-class ventilator in 8 weeks flat. And if you go to any engineering company or medtech company, they will say, okay, it takes around 1 year or 2 years to get that design right and get them going. And it will take many years before the ventilator come onto the market. Today, Vishal was saying the Honorable Prime Minister Modi has tweeted about us 15 days back. Another company which I am working very closely is Cupro Health Tech, which is working disinfection tunnels. Day before yesterday, the government of India, Handle MyGov India, has tweeted about that the first disinfection tunnel has been deployed at the AIG hospital. So we are able to see, IIT Kanpur researchers and faculty members and students are working on PPE kits, on face masks, number of activities. And not as only IIT Kanpur, I am quite aware of the fact that IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, ISC, and there are other private organizations which are working hard to make it more sustainable. So I have a great hope as going forward. And I see COVID not as a challenge, but as an opportunity for innovation, funding, and entrepreneurship sector. Coming back to the topic for today, which in a few minutes time I will request Mr. Chaudhary to speak on it, is about the developmental sector 2.0. Now, why are we calling developmental sector 2.0? Let me give you certain statistics. Exactly a year before, in May 2009, there was a interesting study come from Economic Times, which says the growth in development sector is happening at 11% on year-on-year basis. And some story other came, they said like almost 50,000 crore will be funded in this fiscal year in development sector, and number of companies have started supporting and ideas which start building around development sector. Okay, CSR could be very important play a role in the of vulnerable class. Now, exactly a year after, in May 2020, another Economic Times report has come which says there is a decline in development sector happening by 50%. So exactly in a year's time, this story has changed. Now, out of the remaining 50% which is available, many of the CSR organizations are committing majority of the money for COVID-19 related activities. And the profits, we all know profits are low. So certainly those that money will dwindle over a period of time. Now, what will happen if all the money goes to COVID related activities? What will happen to the other activities which the companies were doing? For example, education, childcare, women issue, that will suffer a lot. And that we are very concerned about, because country India where the 22% of the population is under below poverty line, and very easily we can say 60-70% of the population is poor. What will happen to these communities if the money is not available? So there is another interesting article which I was reading, which says that three things that the sector should do. They should proactively support the vulnerable and most marginalized group. That is something which we all have to come together. It's not the onus of the companies anymore. It's not the onus of the government anymore. It's the onus of every single citizen to participate and support the marginalized group. We need to build the resilience. How do we build the resilience? To make a stronger community, we can build the primary healthcare system. We all know more than 2 crore people have gone back in a reverse migration. The migration which has taken place in 30 years, it has just taken 2 months to go back. Now imagine that how much challenge the villages and these communities will start facing. So we have to build up the primary health system, and then we have to collaborate smartly to leverage the scarce resources. In India, country like India, which is even country like US, the economy has contracted. European economy has contracted by 20-30%, depending on the country. Indian economy, as of now, there is no data available, but I can very confidently say that we won't be in positive growth this year. We will be in negative GDP growth, which is not a good story. So we have to smartly leverage the scarce resources. We have to find solutions so that we can build up the development sector for the coming generation. With this opening note, I would like to invite Mr. Ajai Chowdhry to share his keynote. And in the end, there will be certain questions. I know that this session is going on Facebook Live, but I have prepared some questions. The last 10 minutes, I will request Mr. Chowdhry to take a few questions, which I will be asking on behalf of the participants. Over to you, Mr. Chowdhry.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Nikhil. I think you've laid out the situation quite well. And what I'd like to now sort of start from is the fact that COVID is here. And I guess the first question that's always asked of me is, what's the time frame we are looking for in terms of COVID? Frankly, there is total uncertainty on that. We really don't know. I don't think anybody knows. However, from all projections, it's clear that we will see it grow from June to August, definitely. After that, maybe it will go down in September, but these are all projections. However, I do feel we may also see a W curve with recurrence and regular lockdowns, but the lockdowns will not be total. They'll be pretty much limited to certain infected islands. And things can change only once a cure or a vaccine is available. Now, when do we expect a vaccine? It's $1 million question. Recently, Serum Institute of India has talked about bringing it out very soon. They've already started manufacturing the product that's been developed at Oxford. They say that it will be available in October. But, and the US has also launched a very special program, around that whole Manhattan project that they had earlier. And the objective is to crunch the time and get a vaccine. However, 1 billion people of India, 1+ billion people of India, how long it will take for us to actually vaccinate all? I think that's going to be the big question. And there is a lot of discussion going on world over. Who's going to grab the first part of the vaccine? And there's going to be a huge, in a manner, diplomatic situation as to who gets more. And I think typically in the past, we have lost out and the Europeans and the Americans have walked away with more than us. But hopefully with more Indian companies involved this time, we may see a change. And I think the Indian government will step in and take much more aggressive decisions this time to politically and also otherwise control this whole situation. But what will it be? It will fundamentally be that, you will still see COVID around for a while. And even the cures that are coming around are more in terms of, existing medicines, which could actually be repurposed for this cure. And this cure basically will reduce the time for you to be in hospital by maybe 4 or 5 days. So I think I think the voice is echoing. Is there some issue there? Just check, because I've been getting messages.
My request to all the attendees is that they can mute their other the speakers.
Okay, so let's see now. Okay, so fundamentally, even if this cure comes around, you really will not have an absolute cure for the whole situation. So in addition to that, maybe 60% of people will be asymptomatic also. So these kind of situations will be there. And the fear of the infection will be around for quite a while. So masks, gloves, social distancing will be the norm for a long time. And so people will be very careful. And how do you plan for your organization, whether you are a social entrepreneur or a startup or an NGO? How do you plan for your organization in such a situation? And I think what you need to do is to look at the next 6 months, pretty much a very severe impact. It's going to be quite severe. And I think medium term, maybe 12 months to 18 months, it'll probably take time for recovery. And so I guess everybody will have to plan cautiously till end of 2021. So immediately, if not done so, look at a totally new budget for your organization, reduce overheads. So now, immediately, if not done so, please relook at your plans for this year, look at your budgets for this year, and reduce overheads in every way that you can, and plan to ride it out or survive till end of December 2021. I think you will only see some light at the end of the tunnel by about first quarter of 2022. So the new normal will be a pretty much a low touch way of working, new habits, new regulations, travel restrictions, and hygiene restrictions. This will change how we shop, socialize, and change, I guess, will be the only constant. So what do you need to do? What you need to do is to use more and more technology the way we are doing today, and make your organization hugely digital. Okay, and that's not an easy thing to do for various social organizations, because they've got so many people out there in the field working at the grassroots level. And how do you do that? It's not so easy. It's easy to say, but difficult to do. And I think you'll need to also look at how to work from home as a concept and actually work from anywhere. So that's the concept that you have to adopt. And maybe long term, it'll be good for us because it will save a lot of costs and reduce travel costs, for example. Okay, so those kind of things are likely to be there. But you need to also look at protecting your frontline warriors. You know, people who work in the field cannot just go away from the field, because especially for NGOs who work in rural areas, etc., you have to be there. And those kind of challenges are very, very serious today. So you will need to create SOPs for everyone. You will need to make sure that there is a way of working everywhere, and you protect them very, very carefully. So I think the no-touch SOPs will have to be written down and implemented in every organization out there. And I think you are pretty much seeing lockdowns everywhere. If you see, pretty close to 1/3 of the world is under lockdown. Slowly, slowly things are opening up. But what is going to be the impact of this in India and globally? And I think the impact will be quite severe. You will see mass bankruptcies. You will see, mass unemployment. And that's going to be a very serious situation for all of us. And due to COVID, borders will remain closed. For example, Australia has announced that they will not open their borders till December. So these kind of things will happen, and there'll be a lot of call for self-sufficiency and nationalism. That's not bad, because I think Atmanirbharta is what the Prime Minister calls it, is good for us. And I think if we are dependent on creating products in India and creating services in India for the Indian market, I think it will be of great value. So our imports can reduce. And those kind of things are likely to happen everywhere. It's not going to be just India. For example, the US is saying that they are going to make sure that all semiconductors are manufactured in the US. they don't want to import semiconductors from anywhere. So, these kind of situations are happening. They've actually set up a $20 billion fund, which is called Chips for America. So, these kind of things I'm seeing happen. They're already happening. Supply chains disruptions have been very severe. And as a result, this is where, social organizations have been playing a role which has been very, very valuable for the country. Because social organizations are the ones that actually reach places where others don't go. And I think that's really where the role of social organizations will come into play. And definitely people will realize that even in areas where it's possible to use social organizations, they will like to use them. Even corporates should actually work on using social organizations all over the country to actually get their product or services or solutions into the hinterland. Of course, there's going to be a major change in the way jobs will be. I think what you will find is that jobs will reduce, and all organizations will move on to different kind of salaries. They will have they'll have fixed salaries and variable salaries, and people will start to pay accordingly. And you will see a bigger gig economy emerge. Lots and lots of people will actually be working as freelancers. I think this is going to be a major change, and this is where even the social sector will need to adapt to this kind of a situation. I have heard of people who work from 6 in the morning till 2 in one organization, and from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening, they work for another organization. So, these are kind of changes that are likely to happen in a much, much bigger way. But you will also see many opportunities around you. So there will be huge opportunities in healthcare, wellness, and areas like telemedicine will zoom up, and things like technology professionals will be needed more and more. So I think these are the kind of people, these are the kind of areas that will happen more and more. So you will see opportunities too in this scenario. As I said, I do believe rural India will definitely reboot faster than urban India. And if rural India is going to reboot faster than urban India, there'll be many opportunities in rural India to work on. And I think the migrant workers themselves present an opportunity. So I think that's what we need to look at. How do we actually work with migrant labor who have moved back and see what we can do? So, I've been talking to a few social entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs, and they're all thinking, how do we convert a lot of these well-trained people who've gone back from urban locations to rural locations, and how do we get them to be actually utilized to create, in a manner, more entrepreneurs? So in a manner, you could create a lot of micro entrepreneurs there. And I think that's where a lot of things can be done. They could actually, we have got an urban clap. Why can't we have a rural clap? And have entrepreneurs and people who've got good training to become multi-product entrepreneurs. There'll be solar technicians that will be required in all these locations. There'll be clean water people will require all these locations. So you could have people starting ATMs for clean water. So I think those are the kind of things that are going to be taking off. And interestingly, what started many years ago as rural BPO, you will see many, many more rural BPOs happen. But I guess reskilling will be essential for everyone, including everyone who works within social organizations. So everyone needs to use online learning and prepare themselves, because this time is different. This is the kind when online is going to be a very big deal, and therefore learning to use online, whether for your business or for delivering any services anywhere in the country, it will be important. However, unfortunately, the fear of the disease is in a manner more than the disease. We will need to live with COVID. We can't just say we're going to sit at home and do nothing. We have to start going to offices. We just need to take precautions. Most of those who contract COVID will survive. I don't think there's that much of an issue, and they will recover. So, but few things will change for a long time, which is, as I said earlier, think in terms of maybe 50% of your workforce actually working from home, and avoid unnecessary trips so that you can actually reduce costs. So how do we use COVID? I mean, this is something that everybody is talking about, how do we use COVID as a trigger for transforming our development sector? Okay. And I think technology will be the key enabler and a huge amount of innovation. And how do we use technology to innovate new things? So there's been a lot of discussion about funding, and there's a lot of issues about funding for the social sector and how this funding will keep contracting. And Nikhil, you talked about the whole situation. Few years, I think last year or something, I'd read this Bain report where they said that a lot of philanthropists are willing to give more money in the next 5 years. Things have changed. I don't know whether they're still there or not, but their intention was there. And I think we need to get to them. We can't just sit back and say they're going to give away everything to the PM Cares Fund or they'll give it away to COVID. No, no, no. I think some of them will still keep certain monies available. And the good way to do it is to use technology to get to them also. So maybe you should use online marketplaces pertaining to social sector. Donors and volunteer organizations' activities can be streamlined. Okay. As a result, it is possible to use technology to enable creation of some kind of a virtual ecosystem. And that's where organizations like you, who have actually created this great summit, maybe take a lead in creating this virtual ecosystem where everybody can come together, the volunteers, the NGOs, the givers. Okay. So all of them can come together. I think technology can also be used to get small sums of money. You know, don't look at, I'm going to get 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs and 40 lakhs from here. Start to think, how can I get 500 rupees and 100 rupees and 3,000 rupees? And I think that kind of an online payment concept needs to be created in a very big way. And people need to be informed that this is possible. So people can contribute 500 rupees to a cause that they really believe in. And I think this is where a lot of marketing effort needs to be put in, so that people can be reached. People who really care can be reached. I mean, you look at the kind of things that happen in change.org, etc., etc. A lot of people support a lot of these activities today. So there's definitely the need for us to actually get to market and tell people that, you know, we can help you facilitate giving 100 rupees, 200 rupees easily. You know, it should not be made difficult. So I think there are some marketplaces I've heard of. Socially Good is one of them. I think those kind of things can be also looked at. So, you know, now I want to sort of go into some experiences that I've had in terms of working together with the social sector. About 8-10 years ago, when I took a retirement from HCL, I said, I'm going to give back to society. And therefore, I started my own, social giving back situation, which was called Swayam. And I also started to work with a few social sector organizations. The first one I started to work on was with Population Foundation. Now, Population Foundation was at that stage looking at using edutainment as a model to communicate. Okay. And they had decided that they will create a serial to be able to communicate about what they wanted to achieve. And they had talked to Doordarshan, and they had decided that they will work with Doordarshan to create this serial and take it to the people whom they wanted to address. And they wanted to address 4 or 5 states very specifically. But obviously, when you are on television, you can address every state. So at that stage, I started working with Population Foundation just as an advisor on technology. And the first thing that I told them is, look at a 360 degrees approach to communication, not just using one model of communication, which is television. So I said, why don't we expand television and create a special serial for just radio? And if we can move from television to radio, we'll increase the reach much, much more. And then also use, radio, which is available in dark areas. Okay, so there are lots of radios that are community radios that are available in dark areas, dark media areas, as we call them, and use them. So that was the first thing that I advised them. The next thing that I said was that if you want to go after inducing behavior change, we need to also look at other models of communication. So what did we want to achieve at that stage? What we wanted to achieve was to trigger positive changes in knowledge, attitude, and practices. And the initial goal for the first serial was that we should prevent sex selection. We should create awareness against child marriage. We should improve quality of healthcare and promote non-coercive family planning. So the whole idea was women's health, around which all these issues were to be taken up. As PFI was only planning the TV serial, I sort of told them, why don't you start to even look at social media right now? So they started to look at social media. But one thing that we did, which was a very good breakthrough technology, was that I had invested in a small startup, and they had created what is called an interactive voice response system. So I brought them to PFI and said, why don't you have an interactive voice response system so that everyone who's watching the television serial, they can actually call back and ask questions. And if they have any issues, they can raise those issues. So I think that's what pretty much what happened. And we got tremendous response through that interactive voice response system. So that's what I'm saying, that we got them to look at technology very, very early. And interestingly, what's happened since then is that the organization has become really technology savvy. They've really learned how to use technology. And today they have a English chatbot that they're using. Okay, so those kind of things have happened. Similarly, many years ago, when the Nirbhaya situation happened, I sort of read a little piece in Times of India, which said there's this young man, Piyush Tiwari, who actually said that we could have prevented those deaths on the road if there was a Good Samaritan Act in place in the country. So I sort of rang up Piyush and said, why don't you come and see me? And I would like to discuss this with you. And that's how I got involved with Save Life Foundation, which he founded. And he started it because it hit him personally. His cousin died in a road accident. And he said, I've got to do something. He gave up his very well-paid job and he started Save Life Foundation. And since then, I've been involved with them as a trustee. So they have been also using technology from the beginning. And I kept telling them, use social media, do all kinds of things like that. So when COVID hit us, Save Life Foundation decided to pivot to COVID, because really, if everything is locked down, there are no deaths on the road happening. So what should they do with their people? They decided they will sit inside Delhi government and help them in COVID. So they actually helped set up a very good war room inside Delhi government. They actually used things like data analytics to help them plan for the future. And they also created videos on how to take off and put on PPEs, because a lot of health workers didn't know how to do it. And this was done in Hindi. So these are the kind of additions that they did. Similarly, Population Foundation also decided to pivot during this period to an extent. And they started working with the MyGov page, and they created all content for COVID. And they started to even create organizations like Parliamentarians for Innovation. They got together some parliamentarians, some funds and others, and they started to look at how can we support more innovation for COVID. So I think those are the kind of interesting things that I have seen happen. And I think that's what a lot of the social sector should be looking at doing during these difficult periods. And one of the most interesting things that I've seen is that the government realized that this desperately need the social sector. And I remember Amitabh Kant writing to pretty much all the NGOs in the country and saying, let's all work together in supporting this situation. And this is not the first time that social sector is actually supporting things like this. In all kinds of things that have happened in the past, cyclones, this, that, whatever. So social sector has always been there for the country. And I think good thing is that the government recognized that the importance of the social sector. And I think the social sector has really come up to help, because where a lot of things are not reaching today, the social sector NGOs can reach. And I think there is a big gap that's happening in the rural areas today. When I was discussing with the Population Foundation, they were finding that and lots of things that were happening earlier through NGOs are no longer happening because they're unable to reach those kind of things. So sanitary pads and methods for contraception, products for contraception, all of those are not really reaching. So I think those are all challenges that are facing us today as we are battling this whole situation of COVID. And I think that is where the social sector plays a huge role. Now, interestingly, having recognized that the government needs the social sector to help and support in all these areas, one thing that has really not happened, and I think we should definitely push for it from the government, is to giving support to the social sector. I was reading an article this morning where the UK has, I think, pledged pretty much 0.03% of GDP for the social sector. And 750 million pound package has been announced, okay? And Canada is also providing 350 million in support. So I think many other countries I was reading also are providing support to the social sector. And I think this is a time when we need to get this kind of support from the government, and that would be essential for us to tide over this difficult period. So yes, these are tough times, but I think we need to gear ourselves up to looking at the opportunities around us and looking at what and where can we add value. So all non-profits need to draw up also a post-COVID plan, where we should not just focus on cost reduction, but should also have strategies to diversify the donor base. Okay, like when we were looking at PFI, I found that all their donors who have actually stayed with them all through all this period were all international organizations. And the CSR funding that they were getting was from a very small base in India. So all their international donors have actually told PFI, you don't need to move out any people. We are going to support you right through this period. So they, in a manner, turned out to have a good situation where they will do as well as they've done the previous year. But that's not going to be the situation with everyone. So you need to constantly look at how do you diversify your donor base and use new forms of fundraising, as I said, crowdfunding, etc., etc. Social media marketing. You need to do a lot of marketing to people you want to get into. And there are also, I think, things like development impact bonds that are coming out. In addition to that, I was also reading that SEBI is now planning to create a social stock exchange. Okay, things like this, I think, exist in some other countries. So there's a report that has been just published, given to the government, to SEBI, to create a social stock exchange. I think that will be of great value. They're also talking about 100 crore fund for sector development. So that will prioritize support to smaller non-profit organizations. So I think there is some hope out there. However, what I'd like to mention is that the road ahead is difficult, okay, but manageable with innovation and use of technology. And lastly, with the aspiration to succeed. I think that aspiration is what will take us forward. You know, my guru, C.K. Prahlad, used to say, A is greater than R. Aspirations are greater than resources. So if you have the aspiration, the resources will happen. Okay, thank you.
Such an inspiring address. I think I am personally motivated after hearing you, sir. Certainly you have summarized this very well about the COVID should be looked as a trigger. It should not be looked as a adversity. It should be looked at as an opportunity. Yeah. And at least personally working with 3 or 4 companies in the recent times, I have seen how these people have come together, collaborated despite of the challenges faced, and delivered. So there is a possibility that without the office, without the resources we can work, there has to be इच्छा, जो हम बोलते नहीं है हिंदी में, there has to be दृढ़ता. Dharata and Ichha should be there. That's only can make the Atmanirbhar Bharat. There is no way others. Another very important point which you raised about how technology can be leveraged as a funding. I remember many years back when we were 100 crores. So it was said, अगर हर भारतीय 1 रुपया दान करेगा तो 100 करोड़ बनता है.
बिल्कुल.
इतना आसान है सोचना. मतलब on a parallel we can say, okay, these many people are getting ill, these many people are dying, but are we donating 1 rupee per day? I am saying just donate 1 rupee per day. If you can, everybody can donate. Even the poorest of the poor can donate 1 rupee per day. He may be earning 100 rupees per day, but 1 rupee donation will make a significant difference. So start that process of donating 1 rupee. In fact, I would request Vishal to think of, he's a technologist, start thinking of those ideas. Can we motivate billions and billions of people around the world to donate the smallest amount? When I was a child, my father used to tell me a story. There was a Brahman who comes to Raja's place and he said, कि मुझे 1 रुपया दीजिए और रोज उसका डबल कर दीजिए. Only 30 days के लिए. And Raja said, that's fine. Now I can give you 1 rupee today, 2 rupee tomorrow, 4 rupee another day, 8 rupees another day. By the time it was 30th day, Raja's khajana was empty and this person was rich. That's how you should start thinking. The compounding method, collaborative method can work. It's a great opportunity for all of us to come together, to work on it. And people like Mr. Chowdhry and other speakers, I can guarantee, today they are more available than any time else. We will all come to your rescue. If you need any support, if you are feeling that, okay, your company need any ideas, every business idea can be remodeled. That's something which I personally believe. Only if you need a grit, you need a commitment, and you need a team to do it. Today, the teams are also available. People are, because of, today I was scribbling with some other person that anybody calls you on the Zoom, anybody calls you or something, and you cannot do any bahana because you are sitting at home, you have to attend. Earlier you were on the plane and you were in the taxi, you can do that. So there are people who are available and people are willing to do it. All you need to do is reach out. Find out a method to reach out, and don't just reach out, sir, my name is this, I am looking for an opportunity. Tell them that what change you will bring into the society, what change you will bring to the other people, how would you grow. And I can guarantee, and I have seen, day before yesterday, I was speaking to Siddharth Singh, who is the minister in the UP government, and at 4 o'clock sharp, he was on the Zoom. I never ever seen in my life, minister, if you go and meet them in the Mantralaya, they never come on time, but he was there on the Zoom. And then people are responding to your emails. People are responding to your phone calls. People are coming on online to work for it, because everybody knows at this time, if they don't contribute the way they can, then you will have a great regret. So without having a great regret, we should collaborate, we should work together. And as Mr. Chowdhry has said, that use COVID as a trigger. Now it's your choice to use COVID as a trigger for negative way or positive way. And I can guarantee anybody who's attending the conference today will use the COVID as a trigger in a positive way. And 1 month's time when we'll meet again, you will give us more ideas to come. With this, I would like to thank Mr. Ajai Chowdhry for giving the wonderful keynote. And I also request a ceremonial announcement from him that to announce this conference open.
I'm very happy to say that the conference is now open.
Vishal, over to you.
Thank you, Nikhil ji. Thank you, Ajay ji. I think it has been an honor and pleasure to have you opening this conference for us. And it was really amazing to listen into your conversation. I think, as you rightly said, we have to look this as a trigger, and as they say, not as a black swan, but a green swan, where we are looking to do better things ahead. And I think it will get many more good things to do, which will come out of this crisis.